destigmatize emergencies, starting with autism. With that being said, welcome to RAW-tism, a podcast about my autistic experience and opinions on the world. On this podcast, I will be raw and unfiltered. Whether you listen to enjoy, hate listen, or just leave it playing on mute to support me, I appreciate the effort you put into my little program. Thank you! You're always welcome to disagree with me as long as you do so respectfully and with no name-calling. I love you all! If you enjoy this podcast, please consider rating and reviewing RAW-tism to help others find me. Ensure you're following RAW-tism on your preferred podcast streaming service so you never miss an episode. We post a new episode every Monday, but you never know when we'll throw in a special treat during the week. This episode of RAW-tism is about what autism is. Wow. I've had this podcast for a while, and I haven't done an episode focused on the diagnosis of autism in general. Autism is a huge part of who I am. You cannot separate me from my autism. Well, now is as good a time as any to finally cover it. Some people see an autism diagnosis as a cage, holding back those affected from functioning amongst typical people. That's not how I see it. Autism relates to how my brain was formed. I've always been autistic, even before I knew what it was. My diagnosis has given me a community that has helped me learn safer coping mechanisms and which accommodations I need. Once I had an explanation for my struggles, I started doing better in school, my social life, and my mental health. It wasn't all in my head in the way that implies that my struggles are imaginary. It was always all in my head as the way my brain works. I've gone into detail about my experience getting diagnosed in past episodes. But some aren't as lucky as I am. It's crazy that I'm referring to not being diagnosed until I was 22 as luck, but some can't even find professionals willing to believe their struggles. Some people are stuck in the stigma and don't get a chance to get an accurate diagnosis. Before I went to a specialist for my autism diagnosis, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Instead of autism, young boys are diagnosed with ADHD. Struggling students are diagnosed with intellectual disabilities. Women are diagnosed with mood or personality disorders. Some people are even diagnosed with psychosis rather than autism. An overstimulated, undiagnosed girl having a meltdown is seen as overdramatic, attention-seeking, or misbehaved, when in reality, she just needs accommodations and extra help to learn healthy coping mechanisms. An undiagnosed autistic man blowing up at his coworker when they take his usual seat in the lunchroom is difficult or anal when he relies on routine to keep his mind together and has never had help working on his reactions to these stressors. These are just some examples. Any gender identity can have autism. We all struggle in different ways. No two experiences are the same. Autistics, especially those undiagnosed, deal with a lot of condescension from others due to the stigma of seeking a diagnosis. You're not autistic, honey. Don't be so down on yourself. This kind of talk implies that autism diagnosis is a death sentence. In reality, getting the diagnosis of autism doesn't increase one's struggles. It validates them. An undiagnosed autistic is going to have just as much trouble as a diagnosed autistic. Autism is a fact, a way that some people are made. It is not a cancer, a bad omen, or a lifestyle that people choose. It's part of who we are. You're just like every other kid your age. You're just a little behind. You'll catch up. Autistic children are like other kids. That is true. But all children are different in their own ways. Some are better at certain skills like science or math while struggling with others. Autism isn't the only thing that affects children's growth or education. The best way to handle it, in my humble opinion, is to encourage children to embrace their differences. Autism is only a bad thing if you make it a bad thing. The world was made for allistics, not autistic people. That's society's problem. But they try to make it ours. Don't let them. We are amazing just the way we are. We have strengths and weaknesses like anyone else. We just have a better way to understand how our minds work. If you were really autistic, I know it. You wouldn't know what's going on in my head any better than a stranger on the street corner who has never seen me in their life. Masking is a thing. Autistics hide their struggles from the world and cosplay as allistics for acceptance in society. That one psych gen ed you took in college does not make you an expert. Get off your high horse and leave the diagnosing to the professionals. Please and thank you. Autistics are obvious. You don't look autistic, so you're fine. Good. I was worried that I was wearing a big autistic sign on my forehead. Okay. May need to tone down my sass. But the reality is that there's no one way to look autistic. Some disorders have a stereotypical look, like those with Down syndrome or dwarfism, but that doesn't automatically mean that everyone with that disorder looks like that. The important thing to remember is that we are who we are, and no one gets to challenge that. We are who we are.
Always, I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm not even here to tell you what or how to think. I'm here to share the autistic experience with you, from someone who is studying for their graduate certification of autism spectrum disorder, someone who, for the first 22 years of their life, was under the impression that they were allistic, and as somebody who since September 30th, 2022, has finally found their place in the world. I am autistic. I'm a part of the autistic community, and I'm proud of it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Regardless of your thoughts and feelings toward me, I would love for every one of you. You are wanted by many, you are loved by many, and so many want you to stay in this world. I am one of these manys and always will be. If you'd like to support this podcast, the description includes links with referral codes to Circles water bottles, Pair Eyewear's customizable glasses, and my favorite Amazon products. The transcript for this episode can be found for free on my Patreon, which is also linked below. Would you like to see more of me? In that case, visit EmKayArchlink.com for links to my other content. A new episode of RAW-tism comes out every Monday wherever you get your podcasts. Next week's episode of RAW-tism is posted on Patreon every Tuesday, ad-free and unedited. Karaoke videos are posted on Patreon every Thursday. Lastly, my book Unseen Powers is available in hardback, paperback, or digitally through Amazon. Remember to drink water, eat some